I am delighted to welcome to the studio Alexandria Carr.
Yeah. Hello. Hello.
So,
hi, Michael.
Great to have you here with us today, and we're so delighted to have you as part of this production. You do an awful lot in the Birmingham area, and we may get to talk about that a bit later in our interview. But first of all, what role do you play in the show A Matter of Law?
I play prosecution counsel Susan Smithers, who is, she's ace. She's like a really knowledgeable.
How easy or hard have you found it to get into the mind of Susan Smithers?
It's been quite enjoyable, I would say. Having grown up watching loads of, lawyer programs. And I think that's one of the good things that we do here in the UK. We have loads of really great criminal programs. And so just taking inspiration really from some of the stronger female characters that I've seen in that. And then also kind of placing myself as, how would I feel in this position? And I think a lot of her character sort of reflects my own character as well. So for me, it's been quite an enjoyable process.
Thank you. Fantastic. Okay, we're going to come back to her again in a minute. But before we do, what makes A Matter of Law different to any other production that's happening in May?
Well, in terms of the subject matter, the reason why this play is different is we're all very aware of the abuse and the violence against women, which obviously is completely wrong. But I think this highlights the abuse which also takes place against men, which is something that people maybe don't believe goes on because of the stigma. Men should be strong, men should be this, man up, and men in society for a long time haven't been allowed to be vulnerable, therefore haven't been allowed to be seen as the victim. And I think this play really highlights the fact that this does happen.
And I've banded this statistic around many, many times, but 1 in 6 men will be victims of domestic abuse, 1 in 4 women. And I would argue that number is probably somewhat higher, but there is that stigmatism of being a man and admitting that a woman is in control of you, and that shouldn't be the case in the modern society where we have equal rights and equality. But the fact of life is that there's still that feeling of shame. So you've already touched a little bit on Susan Smithers. How would you briefly describe Susan Smithers to us?
She's very smart, she's very calm, she knows what she wants, and she sort of calmly finds a way to get there. She's not a dramatic character. She's not tricksy. She doesn't play tricks with the jury. She's very matter of fact. She understands human emotion, and she understands how to connect with people on that level, because this is a difficult subject. And so to convince people that a man is being abused, beaten up by his partner is quite a tricky challenge. And so she has to be quite careful and quite thoughtful about how she is presenting the case.
Excellent. Brilliant. Yeah. And it should be pointed out, most people already know, but the audience actually becomes the jury in the trial of an alleged female abuser, Edwina Frankield, against her husband, Trevor Frankield. And they will actually see your case played out, the prosecution's case. They'll see the cross-examination by the defense. And then in the second half of the performance, they'll see the case of the defense and how you try to unpick that as the prosecution in your cross-examination. It's quite an exciting, and the audience do make the decision, or the jury, should I say, make the decision whether she is guilty or not guilty. So there are 7 people in the cast. It's a fairly large cast, but that's just me. But what do you think about the other people that are in this show?
Objection. I couldn't possibly say.
Very nice. Very cleverly.
Off the record, I'll say that they all seem really lovely, and I think actually casting wise done Like, it's an excellent job. I think this play is really, really like hit the nail on the head in terms of casting. And
in your opinion, as Susan Smithers, do you think that Edwina Frankield is guilty or not guilty of the charges laid against her?
Well, as prosecution counsel, I 100% believe that she is guilty and needs to be punished for her actions, not only to save Trevor and to help him move out of this very difficult relationship, which a lot of victims, both male and female, find it hard to escape. It also sends a message out that A, that this happens, and B, that it is punishable and that you can't get away with it, you know, just because of this perceived roles of male female in society. It's not acceptable.
Fantastic. Thank you. Great answer. And again, it's interesting to see how the law has changed, because it used to be domestic abuse was just the GBH, the grievous bodily harm aspect. And as this play draws reference to, there is also the controlling and coercive behavior. And so that it's saying, you know, not all abuse is physical, but there's a lot of the time, sometimes that the abuse is mental and controlling, and that actually has more of damage.
And I think as well, when you were saying about the stats being higher, I think a lot of victims don't realize that they're in an abusive relationship because of that mental, that psychological, you know, treatment of them, that actually sometimes you don't realize that you're in a difficult relationship, an abusive relationship, until you've had the chance to step outside.
Thank you. Okay. Why should people come to see A Matter of Law in May at the Blue Orange Theatre?
Because A, it's brilliant. And as I say, the writing, the casting is just, I'd say, top notch, 100% on the money. And then the subject matter, even though it's quite a heavy subject matter, I think it's really engaging, and it's not a subject which is dealt with, you know, frequently. So it's you know, it's not a love story, it's not this, it's not that. So come and see something different, come and see something that challenges you. And also the very fact of the way that it's set up. So you get to see the two halves of the story, you know, the ambiguity there, it's played out for us all to see. And you get, as an audience, you get to become the jury, and you get to actually decide the outcome of the play, which, you know, again, that there's so many reasons to see this play.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I mean, it is written neutrally, so that you and I, for instance, could go and watch the performance. It would be a bit difficult because we're in it, but we go and watch the performance. You might think that Edwina needs to be locked away. I might think that Trevor needs support from the mental health team, and that she's a saint for putting up with his behaviour. And there's enough there to give both those perspectives. And you know, it's a tough job. The prosecution's role is tough, because she has to prove within a shadow of a doubt that it's happened, whereas all the defense has to do is introduce an element of doubt, and he's won. And that's hard. So I you know, I applaud you. You've got a tough job ahead, but I think it's in safe hands. So okay. What other theatre work have you done yourself?
Well, I've been really fortunate actually to work with Michael Harris, who's amazing. I played the specialist in a really moving play he wrote called For Those We Leave Behind. Really great, dealing with terminal cancer. He's got a really gritty writing, not afraid to tackle these bigger subjects, which is really good. Again, that was at the Blue Orange Theatre. So it's nice. I'll be familiar with that space. And then prior to that, I've also been in productions at the Crescent Theatre and over at the Belgrade Theatre in Coventry as well. So I've done a little bit of theatre around the Midlands.
And I'm right in thinking, well, I know I'm right in thinking because I cast you, but you also played Susan Smithers in the online version of A Matter of Law, which was the first time I ever actually met you. And thank the gods, as it were, for that happening. How was that experience doing it online? So we filmed it via Zoom. during the COVID lockdown, so we were all in separate places, and then it got crash edited together.
It was obviously really different, but it was such a special moment because it was lockdown and kind of everything was, finished, dead, and then out of nowhere came this ray of light, and I got to play Susan Smithers on the online version of A Matter of Law, and it was just so fun. It was because it was completely different, and then we all got to watch it, and for me it was one of the highlights of lockdown. Genuinely, just watching that, and then knowing that all your families are watching it. So it was great.
It's great. Tell me a little bit about the work that you do now, because obviously it's not one of the questions we would normally ask, but it is important for us to hear. So tell us what you do.
So my main job is I'm head of jazz and emerging talent for B Music, which is the charity that looks after the town hall and symphony hall. So I get to basically put on amazing events and support emerging artists and jazz musicians, which jazz sounds like one thing, but actually it's such a big world of music. It's incredible. And I'm also a radio broadcaster on the BBC, New Star and Brum Radio as well. So I do a lot of that. And I'm really outside of acting, which is a huge passion of mine. My other passion is music and supporting emerging artists from in and around the Midlands.
Fantastic.
So,
and I know you're very well respected by the artists who you've supported, and we've seen some very interesting new acts coming that perhaps wouldn't have had that stepping stone that you've been able to provide. So on their behalf, I thank you for what you do for them and for Birmingham music and the West Midlands. It's great. Okay, if you could play any role in anything, theatre, TV or film, what would your dream role be, other than Susan Smithers, obviously? But
I would love to play. You know what? I was actually thinking, if this is my dog shaking his head. If I could play any role, I mean, outside of playing Baby in Dirty Dancing, which I think
with Patrick.
With Patrick Swayze. Or Nicole Kidman in Moulin Rouge. Love that too. I would like a go at playing a really mean character. So playing Edwina, actually. Switching it up would be really interesting, I think. Yeah.
Maybe we'll have to get writing for a future festival. Fantastic. Well, the show is rapidly approaching us now. We're very excited. All the lines are being sort of crammed away in people's heads, which is fascinating how you manage to do that. What do you think will be the one thing that you'll take from doing this role?
It's normally the lines that are left in your head.
Yeah.
I think actually, outside of the fact that it's such a serious subject matter, I think I'm going to take away a lot of fun, because as an actor, you're always sort of playing with the roles. So I think I think playing across from Percival is going to be great.
Yeah.
And just
Percival Dempsey, played by the lovely William, who is just incredible. I know I played Percival Dempsey last time. I also played him in the online version, but honestly, I am so delighted to hand that mantle over to him, because he is just so sharp. The pair of you, I think you're going to have fun. Competing is the wrong term, but effectively it is a competition, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the gloves are off, but we'll find out more about Percival Dempsey and William himself a bit later in the week. We've got an interview with him booked in for Friday, God willing. Fantastic. Alex, it's been brilliant to have you here today, and I'm delighted to have you as part of the team, and it's so exciting. So A Matter of Law comes to the Blue Orange Theatre the 12th, the 13th, Friday the 13th, and Saturday the 14th, both afternoon and evening. Tickets are just £15 per person. And on the Saturday afternoon, subject to availability, you can turn up at the door, and if there are seats still available, which is questionable, but if there are still seats available, then you can pay what you can afford. So if you think £15 is not enough for this fantastic show, then stick a little bit of extra in. We'll be very grateful for that. Equally, if you are struggling and you really want to come see the show, but money's tight, then we'll be willing to accept what you can afford to pay on the door, subject to availability, as I say. Also on the Friday, as I've already mentioned, some of the other interviews, we have a workshop coming down with a charity who are coming to do a accredited workshop on understanding victims of domestic abuse. All of the shows and the information about them is available on the website, twogensme.co.uk. And if you click on the top of the page, you'll see there's a link for those really, Matter of Law. And you can go to that show, and that will give you all the details of the cast. It will give you all the show details, but also the details about the workshop. Brilliant. Alex, thank you again for taking time out of a very busy lifestyle to spend time with us, and thank you. We look forward to seeing you on stage in, well, just over a month or so's time. It's going to be fantastic. Objection. Overall.